Well, this is by far the worst sanding and refinishing job we have ever taken on. And we have done a ton of rough floors over the years. But once you see everything that we go through to get this little job cleaned up, I think you're going to be in agreement with me. Now, I cannot tell you how many different layers is on this floor. What kind of coatings, paints, I have no idea. All I can tell you is that there is a hell of a lot of them. And we're going to be trying quite a few different things here. So first we just brought in the power drive. We put 36 grit sandpaper on there. As you can see, gumming up almost immediately. Then I wanted to try the Bona diamond pucks on the power drive. Somewhat kind of worked, but it was heating everything up on the floor and turning it into almost like glue. And if you didn't remove the power drive off the floor and lean it back almost immediately after stopping, those diamond pucks would stick to the floor and would rip off the machine. After that didn't work, I pulled out my Palm copper disc. Now these things come in different grits, and this one's pretty rough, but it'll remove coatings and stuff like this off the floor. And they also use it just for subfloor prep. It started off working good for a hot second, but that didn't last too long. But then I could feel it start to stick, and I knew it wasn't going to end well. So after just doing that little section, there's what it's doing to my plate. Same thing, all that stuff is still warm and hot. You could peel it off, but as soon as it cooled off, it turned hard as a rock and near impossible to get off that plate. I even tried a diamond brush. I just didn't get a video of it, but it did the same thing, would gum up the blades, and that wouldn't work. So really my last resort was going to be the big machine. Now I had no problem bringing this out of the van to use it. The only problem I was worried about was actually putting it on the floor and all that stuff getting gummy and ruining my drum, getting stuck on the wheels. But this machine was actually the only one that would take it off the floor, not heat it up too much, and it didn't stick to anything. Didn't ruin the drum, didn't ruin the wheels, none of that. And we've done that in the past. Like if you ruin that drum, go ahead and figure that's going to be an automatic $1,000 to get that replaced. And I even took this Metabo paint stripping tool around the edges to get it somewhat cleaned up before I edged it with 36. And I'm pretty sure too, this is only like the second time in my history of sanding floors that we've literally had to take a machine across the grain like that. Going at a slight angle or a 45-degree angle, not a problem at all. But to go straight across the grain, you know it's pretty rough. So this is why a big machine will always still have its place, because other tools you think are going to work don't always work. I would have bet so much money on it that copper disc would have took all this stuff off, no problem. But sometimes you hit jobs like this and you just don't know what the hell's going to happen. But here's kind of what it looks like just after the big machine pass, getting a lot of it cleaned up. At this point, Mom's going to switch over to the power drive, and she still started with 36 just so she could get the rest of whatever's left on the floor off before we keep going with our other grits. And this is 36 grit on the edger. As you can see, there's not as much there. Remember, I took the Metabo tool around the walls to get a lot of it off. It didn't take everything because the floor's so cupped and everything else. We got to get it back flat as well. And this is what I'm dealing with around the walls everywhere. I might go a foot. Sometimes I can go a little bit further. All I can tell you is it is absolutely no fun. And there's one board of heart pine here I got to replace. Had some serious termite damage or something from the past. As you can see, I got it marked there where the joist is. So I'm just going to cut it off right there, take it over to the wall. There's no plywood subfloor or anything like that in here. This is an old home, so they laid the floor directly on the flooring joist. That piece I installed is 1.1 inch thick. As you can see, it's pretty close in some sections. In the middle, it's a little bit too high. So this floor originally used to be 1.1 inch thick, but it's been sanded down quite a few times. But I just wanted to get that in there, and then I'm going to get that sanded back down. It's always a good idea to run those boards through a planer if you can beforehand, then you don't have to spend so much time sanding them down. I just didn't have one with me. I even had to do a Dutchman repair in this one area here. This piece actually ripped out of the floor. Now there is a couple of these in the home already, and these kind of add character. But when we're dealing with these 1.1 inch thick floors, getting the material is hard enough. So instead of replacing the entire board, we can just go in, cut down about 1/4 inch of that section, put in a new piece, and then it's good as new. Now it is not going to be a perfect match, but I do try to match a wood up as best I can. But trying to match something up that's 200 plus years old is kind of tough. But it still looks better than a chunk missing out of the floor. And the sap, the technical term is oleo resin, will still come out of these heart pine floors for the rest of its life. So I'm down to almost my final pass here. You can see it's still coming out around the walls. And certain boards, I already know it's going to do it immediately as soon as I hit it. Here's a fun fact about the oleo resin. Again, what you refer to as sap coming out of the boards. They actually used to harvest that from the trees and then would brush it on the wooden boats back in the day, and that's how they would help waterproof them. That corner there I actually forgot to hit with my logger flip and the corner attachment, but I wanted to show you the old school way, scraping it first and then sanding it. If you didn't scrape all that stuff off, it would just gum the paper up immediately. But here we are, finally getting down to the final pass of the power drive. So we're finishing up this hard pine floor with 100 grit mesh sandpaper. And I'm going to do a totally different video just showing you what all is involved with the steps on this job. So this video is just going to be on the floor, and we're getting to the point where we're almost going to be done. But after that last pass is finished, we'll go through, we'll vacuum up. I personally do not run a Tampico brush on these old floors. A lot of these older floors, they still got gaps and cracks in between the boards. You can never get them perfectly clean. There could be small staples, bobby pins, anything in there like that. So I don't want to rip one out of the crack, get it hung up underneath the brush, and scratch the floor up. And anybody that's worked in these old homes, they know exactly what I'm talking about, those old bobby pins. And after we get our first 2 coats down, right before we finish the final coat, we are going to braid the floor. Then we're going to vacuum it up again, get everything cleaned up. Then we'll put down our final coat. And the finish we are using on this job is Loba Easy Prime and Loba Duo 2K 2-component finish in a satin sheen. And again, after I braid the floor, I'm usually running a Tampico brush on a normal floor, but not on these old ones. And once this final coat goes down, we'll see how it turns out. And if you actually stayed and watched the whole video, it is greatly appreciated. Please let me know what you think in the comments. And here it is, all done. So for a floor that's 200 years old, it turned out way better than I honestly thought it was going to. The customers were beyond thrilled to death with this job, and they're already talking about doing the upstairs now. But here's a couple before and afters, what it looked like prior, and then once it's all completed, again, I'll do a video totally separate just on the steps and what I had to do on that process. And here's a quick walkthrough. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed.